Excuse me.
Hey, it's Kunta Kinte!
Eddie Murphy is an American comedian, actor, screenwriter, and producer. His career is like a roller coaster. Dizzying highs are followed by rapid lows. We will tell you about all the twists and turns of Eddie Murphy's life in today's video. How Eddie Murphy lives and how he spends his millions. Edward Regan Murphy, or just Eddie, was born in Brooklyn, New York on April 3, 1961. His mother, Lillian, worked as a telephone operator, and his father, Charles, was a transit police officer. For fun, he performed in the theater and gave stand-up performances. By that time, the family was already raising a son, Charlie, who is 2 years older than our hero. When Eddie was 3 years old, his parents divorced. Soon, Lillian was hospitalized with tuberculosis, and her son had to live with a foster family for a year. And a few years later, Murphy Sr. was killed. Surprisingly, despite all the tragedies, little Eddie retained a sense of humor and loved to make strangers laugh. He amused strangers on the bus by inventing stories about them and getting the applause of fellow travelers. The boy gave improvised stand-up performances at school, thanks to which he earned the sympathy of not only classmates, but also teachers. And while studying in high school, Murphy was named the most popular student. Eddie's stepfather, Vernon, supported his passion for comedy. He, an ice cream factory worker, a man far from art, encouraged his stepson's desire to perform on stage. Richard Pryor, one of the pioneers of modern stand-up in America, became a role model for the young man. His blunt but charming in its simplicity type of humor greatly influenced Murphy. On July 9, 1976, Eddie performed at a talent show at the Roosevelt Youth Center with a parody of soul legend Al Green. Soon, the young man started working in the clubs in his neighborhood, then all over New York and even in nearby states, receiving from $25 to $50 for a performance. The young comedian even made it to San Francisco, where he performed at the iconic Bay Area Comedy Club, where Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams began their professional career. Sometimes he had to skip school for trips, and when Murphy's mother found out about it, she sent him to a summer school as punishment. Eddie continued his education at Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. In 1980, he went to audition for the comedy show Saturday Night Live, and the program began to lose popularity and several stars had left, so they were looking for new talents. The charisma of the 19-year-old comedian did its part, and after a 3-stage casting, he was hired. Interestingly, this was the first and last audition in Murphy's life. At first, he would get minor roles, but he quickly managed to show his worth and become a part of the main cast. People involved in the show believe that Eddie saved the ratings, becoming the face, the soul, and the brightest star of SNL. He was particularly good at parodies of celebrities. A James Brown impression, for instance, who tries to get into a jacuzzi throughout the whole skit, deserves special notice. In 1981, the actor would receive $4.5 thousand for one episode, and in the next season, the salary increased to $30,000. Soon, another offer came in to star in the comedy action movie 48 Hours. For this role, he was nominated for a Golden Globe in the category New Star of the Year, and his payout was $450,000. Rumor has it that in the early 80s, Eddie dated Whitney Houston. They went to public events together several times and most likely were on good terms, but they never confirmed their relationship. In 1983, Murphy starred in the comedy Trading Places and again received a Golden Globe nomination.
Hey, Bubbles, man! Say, man, when I was growing up, we want jacuzzi, we had to fart in the tub. This is bad.
At first, the actors filmed in the office of the New York Mercantile Exchange on weekdays, but their appearance caused such a stir among brokers that the work stopped, so filming had to be moved to the weekend. Murphy had no idea how the bidding worked. Later, he admitted that in the scenes on the stock exchange, he simply followed the script without even trying to figure it out. But experts in the field of finance have made sense of the plot. In 2010, the Wall Street Reform Act included a ban on the use of insider information. This is approximately what the characters of the film tried to do, and this was informally called the Eddie Murphy Rule. In 1984, our hero earned $1 million for his role in the film Best Defense and starred in the comedy action movie Beverly Hills Cop. Although it became comedic after Murphy was approved for the lead role, and initially the film was supposed to be a classic action movie with Sylvester Stallone. On the set, the actor freely improvised and came up with entire dialogues or scenes on the go. And he did it so wittily that the film crew couldn't help laughing, and hundreds of takes were ruined. Filming had a rather intense pacing, and Eddie was very tired but refused to drink coffee, as he didn't take stimulants. Nevertheless, in the end, he gave up, and after taking a couple of sips, he managed to improvise the famous Super Cops monologue.
I'm still freaked out by it. You must have a sixth sense. I don't know what you teach these fellows, but they're not just regular cops, okay? They're super cops. And the only thing missing on these guys are capes.
For his efforts, the comedian received $14 million and a Golden Globe nomination. For that project, Eddie refused to star in Ghostbusters, but its box office turned out to be even less than Beverly Hills Cops. The movie's commercial success was so great that Paramount Pictures signed an exclusive contract with Murphy. In the same year, he got a Grammy Award in the category Best Comedy Album for his album Comedian. In 1985, he released the music album How Could It Be on a Dare? How could it be? His stand-up idol, Richard Pryor, once said that Murphy could sing, and in response, Murphy brought in famous musicians such as Stevie Wonder and Rick James to record 8 R&B and synth-pop songs. On the back cover of the album, Eddie wrote a dedication to Richard Pryor, my idol with whom I have a $1 million bet. The actor made 3 songs, and the album as a whole was a commercial success. In the following years, several more albums were released, but they were less successful. In 1986, Murphy had the opportunity to star in the cult sci-fi franchise Star Trek, which he was a fan of. In the script of the 4th full-length film, The Voyage Home, the role of a UFO expert was written specifically for the charming comedian. However, he wasn't satisfied with the proposed character, and the parties never came to an agreement. But he appeared in the film Golden Child, which was supposed to be an adventure drama but turned into a comedy. However, later, he openly criticized the film, wondering how it collected more than $100 million at the global box office. Even more commercially successful was the second part of Beverly Hills Cop, which was released in 1987. Interestingly, the film studio, in the wake of the success of the first movie, wanted to launch a TV series, but Eddie refused, and the sequel was their compromise. The actor's payout was $8 million. While working in the cinema, Murphy was doing stand-up. He released several performance recordings that became iconic in the world of comedy. The program Delirious was incredibly successful, and the show Eddie Murphy Raw even received wide cinemas distribution and collected $50 million, which became one of the highest figures in the history of stand-up. The comedian's humor on stage is very different from his jokes in Hollywood films. It is sharper, sometimes offensive, and stereotypical. Eddie had to apologize more than once for his radical statements. Perhaps this was the reason that, in the end, he gave up this genre. Writing jokes became more difficult for him, and stand-up stopped bringing pleasure. But the cinema brought not only pleasure, but also a consistently high income. For the comedy Coming to America, Murphy received $8 million for performing 4 roles at once and recording the soundtrack.
Tell me how you want me to cut this. Just make it nice and neat. That'll be $8.
In 1989, Eddie tried his hand at directing with the crime comedy Harlem Nights. Critics showed lukewarm reception, and at the Golden Raspberry ceremony, Murphy received an anti-award for the worst screenplay and was nominated as worst director. But the work of the stylist was appreciated with an Oscar nomination. Next came the film's Another 48 Hours with a check of $7 million. Boomerang, Distinguished Gentleman, and Vampire in Brooklyn. None of them achieved the success of Murphy's previous projects, and on the show Saturday Night Live, David Spade joked, "Look, children, it's a falling star. Make a wish." Eddie was offended by these words, and he held a grudge not only against Spade, but also against the writers and producers of SNL, who let the joke on the air. He refused to return to the show as a guest for several decades and let go of it only in 2019. By the way, Murphy stopped acting in the program that brought him fame back in the mid-80s. In 1993, our hero married model and actress Nicole Mitchell. They met at one of the awards and, after a couple of dates, moved in together. The wedding was held in the grand ballroom of the famous Plaza Hotel in New York, and it cost $1.5 million. 5 children were born in their marriage, but Murphy's first child wasn't Nicole's. Eddie cheated on her, and he has sons Eric and Christian from different women. In the mid-90s, there was a decline in our hero's career. Work on the third film about a Beverly Hills cop wasn't going well. The budget increased to $50 million, and filming had to be paused because of this. $15 million of this amount was intended for Eddie Murphy as a payout, but at the box office, the movie didn't meet expectations. Something went wrong in the music field as well. MTV viewers put his video for the song "What's Up With You" in a duet with Michael Jackson, in third place in the list of the worst videos of all time. After the failure, Murphy decided to leave his musical experiments off the screen and returned to it only in the 2010s. By the way, Eddie was friends with the Pop King and played a pharaoh in his music video "Remember the Time." On June 26, 1996, the actor was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and the next day, the premiere of the comedy Nutty Professor took place.
I lost 300 pounds in 30 seconds. Thanks, Mega Shake.
According to Eddie, this role, or rather one of the 7 roles, required him to be in the best physical shape of his entire career. It took stamina to wear a fat suit, and transformation into Professor Clump took 3 hours. The second skin, made of silicone and foamed latex, was filled with water so that the character's curves realistically swayed when moving. So it's not surprising that the movie won an Oscar for Best Makeup. The actor received the Saturn Award and a Golden Globe nomination on top of the $16 million check. A year later, Murphy starred in the comedy thriller Metro. At the same time, he got into a scandal when he was caught in the company of a transgender sex worker. The actor managed to convince the police that he just wanted to give her a ride, but the public never really forgot about the situation. Director Spike Lee took another jab at Eddie for not supporting his fellow black men. According to Lee, Murphy used black actors and paid them small salaries in the films he produced, instead of helping them to advance in Hollywood. Those close to the actor replied that the very appearance in films with such a star was an act of support for young talents. In addition, in different years, the comedian donated large sums to centers for the support of the black population, AIDS charities, and organizations that help the homeless. In 1998, the comedy Dr. Dolittle, about a doctor who discovers the ability to talk to animals, brought Eddie Murphy another success.
I'm your pet.
You are not my pet, and if I were gonna get a pet, I wouldn't get one as annoying as you. Now get out, go.
Filming was rather difficult for the actor since he is terrified of animals. He demanded to avoid interacting with them in every way possible, and if he had to be in the same room with them, it would end with heart-rending screams. At the same time, he received an impressive payout of $17.5 million. Later, Murphy starred in the films Holy Man, Life, and Bowfinger, and voiced the dragon Mushu in the cartoon Mulan. And in 2000, the comedy Nutty Professor 2: The Clumps was released. Eddie played 8 characters, earning $20 million. According to some reports, together with a box office percentage, the payout amounted to $60 million. Another $20 million he received for the sequel to Dr. Dolittle. And the voice acting of the cartoon Shrek brought a new wave of popularity to our hero. The comedian gave his voice to Donkey by agreeing to a payout of $350,000, plus interest from the box office. Thanks to this, the final earnings reached $3 million, and he was nominated for BAFTA as Best Actor in a Supporting Role, which was the first time for an animated character. The complete opposite of the successful Shrek was Murphy's next project, the fantasy thriller Adventures of Pluto Nash. Chaos reigned on the set. Eddie considered himself the boss, didn't listen to the director, and the executives of the Castle Rock studio couldn't quell the arrogant actor. Due to the constant reshoots, the budget increased to $100 million, and Murphy asked for 20 of them. After several years of torment, the film was finally released and earned a measly $7 million worldwide. After such a resounding failure, the film studio went bankrupt, and the actor joked that it wasn't too bad and that he personally knew a couple of people who liked the movie. Murphy's following projects cannot be called successful either: Showtime, I Spy, Daddy Daycare, and Haunted Mansion. After a series of failures, Eddie decided to take a break from filming. However, he didn't refuse to voice in Shrek 2, earning $10 million. Failures followed our hero in his personal life too. In 2005, Nicole filed for divorce and Eddie paid her $15 million. But the actor maintained a good relationship with his ex-wife. Murphy returned to the screens in 2006, playing a blues musician whose career declined in the musical Dreamgirls.
What you talking about? What you mean we through? Come on, Jimmy, your time has passed.
Hey, man, I got soul. You can't kill a man with soul. Come on, man.
The comeback turned out to be successful. Murphy received the Actors Guild Award and the Golden Globe. He was also expected to get an Oscar in the Best Supporting Actor category, but he lost the award to Alan Arkin. Eddie was very upset about the loss and angrily left the ceremony. Back then, the celebrity had an affair with the ex-member of Spice Girls, Melanie Brown. Soon, the woman got pregnant, but Murphy recognized the child only after a DNA test. He didn't participate in the upbringing of his daughter named Angel, limiting himself to paying £7 million in child support. In 2007, viewers heard Murphy's voice in the cartoon Shrek the Third and saw him in the comedy Norbit. The latter was received by critics unenthusiastically, and the actor received the Golden Raspberry. On January 1, 2008, Murphy held a private wedding ceremony with film producer Tracy Edmonds on the island of Bora Bora. Their vows had no legal force, and the couple wanted to get married again in the USA, but 2 weeks later, they broke up. In the next few years, the actor starred in the films Meet Dave, Imagine That, 8,000 Words, and Tower Heist with a payout of $7.5 million. But none of the projects were successful. The only exception was Shrek Forever, which brought Eddie $4 million, and according to other sources, even $12 million. This lackluster filmography led to Murphy receiving the Golden Raspberry for Worst Actor of the Decade, and he was recognized as the most overrated and unprofitable star in Hollywood. Forbes estimates that for every dollar spent on an actor's paycheck, producers get back an average of $2.3. The scandal about Murphy's refusal to host the Oscar ceremony in 2012 did not help his reputation either. Eddie sided with the producer of the show, who was suspended from the office because of inappropriate statements towards queer people. Despite this, his personal life began to improve. After a series of fleeting relationships in 2012, the actor met model Paige Butcher. For a long time, they kept their relationship private, and in 2016, they had a daughter named Izzy, and 2 years later, a son named Max. He became Murphy's 10th child. Eddie and Paige got engaged in 2018, but haven't legalized their relationship yet. Meanwhile, viewers could see the actor in the TV show Beverly Hills Cop and the comedy drama Mr. Church. In the latter, Murphy played a kind and generous cook working for a white family in the 70s, and the actor's work was highly appreciated by critics.
You're a terrible liar, Mr. Church.
You want some company?
In 2019, Eddie Murphy appeared in the biographical film Dolomite Is My Name, where he played the main role of 1970s stand-up comedian and producer Rudy Ray Moore. Eddie personally knew his hero and loves his work, so he gladly greenlit the project. His next work was the continuation of the comedy Coming to America, which was released in March 2021. And in January 2023, the comedy melodrama You People was released on Netflix.
You have the nappiest hair in this place, and I wear it proudly.
Now, the fourth part of Beverly Hills Cop is at the post-production stage, and the festive comedy Candy Cane Lane is at the filming stage. Now, Eddie is focused more on his family than on work. He can afford to choose projects because his fortune is estimated at $200 million. A few years ago, he signed a contract with Netflix for several projects involving a paycheck of $70 million. And recently, he signed a deal with Amazon, the terms of which were not disclosed. Murphy also has multiple advertising contracts. At the peak of his popularity, he collaborated with Toyota, the financial company Waves of Money, and Mentos. The comedian and his family live in an estate in Beverly Hills with an estimated value of $30 to $40 million. He bought a plot of land with an area of 37 acres in 2001 for $10 million, where he built a huge mansion with a swimming pool in. From the 1980s to the 1990s, Eddie owned another house in the same area, which he sold for $4 million, and even sold apartments he had in a residential complex in Hampstead near New York. The actor bought another house in Englewood, New Jersey in 1985 for $3.5 million. The mansion has 8 bedrooms, several spacious living rooms, a billiard room, a children's room, a bowling hall, and a swimming pool. After several years of trying to get rid of the property, Murphy sold it for $10 million. For a long time, Eddie owned an estate in New York State, which he sold in 2011 for $3.8 million, as well as a mansion in Granite Bay, California. It was sold after the divorce from his ex-wife Nicole for $6.1 million. Murphy also owns an island in the Bahamas, which cost $15 million. In Murphy's garage, he has several Rolls-Royce models, Wraith, Phantom, and Phantom Drophead Coupe. Also, Eddie was seen driving an Aston Martin DB9 Vanquish, a Ferrari 599 GTB Fiorano, and a Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG. Murphy recently spoke out in favor of creating a Shrek spin-off about Donkey, believing that he is much funnier than Puss in Boots, who has several films made about him. So, do you agree with Eddie?
I'm in the middle of a basketball game, although I love to stay and chat with you.
If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything interesting.